Hi, it's Nancy Lynn Ruth with unblockresults.com, where people come to stop procrastinating once and for all, painlessly, almost effortlessly, and in less time than you can imagine possible. I want to tell you about a client I had. I'll make up a name for him. I've been calling him Dave, and I changed some of the information so you can't recognize who this is. But I'm going to tell you Dave's story because it's important for you to see if maybe that's what's going on when you procrastinate. So Dave came to me because his business had reached a ceiling. He couldn't do more. He was a recruiter for executives in technology. So the technology companies would call him up and say, hey, we need somebody to fill this position. And Dave would then do the research. Who out there could fit that role well? Call them up. Say, hey, I've got this opportunity. Are you interested? If they were, he would send the company their resume. If the company hired somebody he'd sent to them, then he got paid. And it was a good company, and it was successful. But as I say, it had reached this ceiling, and he wanted to do more. So he comes to me and says, I need to do more cold calls, but they're so draining. I just can't bring myself to do more than one or maybe two in a day. So what we did was, it was two-part. The first part was, I wanted to know where this was coming from. So I said, in the session, pretend you're calling the next person on your list. So Dave picked up his imaginary phone and dialed the number. He had the screen up on his computer, the script that he was going to follow. And I pretended to be the person he was calling. So I picked up my imaginary phone and I said, hello. And then I said, stop. Just notice, Dave, what's going on inside. And Dave said, ugh, my stomach is all tied up in knots. Okay. So step one, I taught him how to tap to lower that stress, that feeling in his stomach, so that it wasn't as powerful. And that helped. It made it easier for him to push himself to get on the phone. But it didn't take it all away. So he could have used that over and over again whenever he had to do a cold call. But he wanted to get rid of it. I don't like half measures. So we went back to do step two. And that was, let's figure out where this comes from and get rid of it. So I said, Dave, that feeling in your stomach, when have you felt that feeling before? He thought about it. He said, you know, my first job, I had this toxic boss. I'd get this feeling whenever I went in to talk to him in his office or call him, that feeling would come up. Probably it was the reason he ended up leaving that job and going to something else. Okay. So he was getting that same feeling, calling these perfect strangers. His brain had made a connection between the toxic boss and these strangers. So what do? Well, we called up some of those old memories of dealing with that toxic boss, and we tapped on them. I used some advanced tapping, and we released all the feelings around the toxic boss. It's not like he's ever going to go work for the guy again, but he no longer felt that twisted feeling in his stomach whenever he thought about the man or when he'd make his cold calls. So that released all of the tension around making those cold calls and the stress. So now he could make more cold calls easier. I don't think it ever became his favorite thing to do in the world, but still, it was easier to do it, and it wasn't draining his energy, so he could do it at any time during the day and then do more productive things as well later on. So what I want you to notice is two things. One, if you're avoiding doing something because it's so draining, if that's what's making you procrastinate, there's probably something that's been connected in your brain between something bad and that action. You can push yourself to take the action and then see if something comes up physically, like it did for Dave, and see if you can connect that to something in your past. And then that's a great starting point for tapping. So if you enjoyed this video, go to my website, unblockresults.com, sign up for my newsletter. Until I see you again, happy tapping.